Wrench Tip Wednesday. Do bikes come off the showroom floor ready to race? My answer is going to be no. I wouldn't do it. You can do it. You probably will finish a race, but why not fix potential problems instead of risking the chance of DNFing because you broke something because you could have took it off or whatever. You know what I mean? You get the point. So I'm going to go through what we do on our bikes or customer bikes that want to pay us to do race setups. And yeah, here we go. On any race bike build, we strip it down to the frame. We take everything off. So, I mean, your plastics, your tank, everything comes off. On my bikes, we go ahead and put a race wire harness on it, and that will eliminate the big bulky switches, the blinkers, the lights, and all that stuff. I also take the horn and the speedometer off because it's just something else to break. And yeah, so since I take the speedometer off, I put an hour meter on, which I highly recommend because how are you going to keep track of your maintenance intervals and when you need to do things, whatever. Once we have the bike completely stripped down, we go ahead and grease the linkage and swing arm bearings. And the benefits of buying a new bike from Bonecutter Off-Road is we do that in our pre-delivery inspection for our customers. We grease it, that way you don't have to worry about it. So that is a perk. The next thing we do is apply red grease to the chain adjuster bolts and the engine mount bolts to help prevent it from seizing because it's pretty common and that's not a fun chore to tackle if your bolt's seized up. So we also flip the cotter pin around on the rear brake master cylinder to make it easier on removal. So I highly recommend doing that. Another thing we do is on the rear brake line, we loosen it up and then we push it back and then zip tie, or you could use wire to hold it in place. It's just something that could get hit by a rock and come loose and then you won't have any rear brakes and that's no fun. And then on the front brake line, my handguard is gonna rub it, so we added some hose to help protect it. And then a lot of people have issues with their front brake line getting into their spokes. I've never had that issue personally, so this is how you prevent it. One, you add some more protection to protect it, and then two, this holder thing, we wire it on, that way it stays tight and snug, and then we also we put Gorilla Tape around that part of the line. The next thing we do is drain the coolant and put on Samco hoses, and that deletes the thermostat. Thermostat isn't really something that's necessary, just something that might fail, so we get rid of it. And then whenever we fill the coolant back up, I use engine ice just because it's easy and we know what's in it. And a lot of guys, if you have the capabilities of welding, will cut this off and weld it shut. I haven't ever broke one on my bike, so we're not gonna do it, but that is something to think about if you tend to have weird stuff happen to you. And another thing that we do throughout the bike is put protective hoses on things that rub. I showed you the brake line one already. This is one on my cooling hose because you see how tight that is to the pipe. You just take one hit and boom, we're in it, and then yeah, not good. And then okay, on your fuel cap vent hose. This is standard tank, oversized tank, whatever. I got an oversized tank on, and this is how we do it on whichever way I run. You see this hose? We route it all the way down to the skid plate. That way it's not washing out your bearings up top. And you see this other hose? That's your coolant overflow hose. From factory, it runs down to the skid plate. And we cut it short, that way you know if you lost coolant. Next thing that we do, and we'll do this to all the bikes that we sell that are two-strokes, we put a fuel filter on it just because you're better safe than sorry for how cheap those things are and the extra protection they give you. Why would you not? Like, seriously. Okay. This little thing right here is my vent hoses. We route it through the top, that way on the bottom, I'll show you, they're not hanging down there and sucking in dirt, water, whatever, sand, and getting into your carburetor, and it could also cause your throttle to stick. So it's just one of those things that we feel like is necessary and just kind of prevents it. And then you notice right here, we put an extra protective hose on this wire to protect it from rubbing on the battery. Next up, you should get your correct springs for your weight and your suspension. Otherwise, you might hate your bike and it might not be that bad. And I definitely recommend being honest about your weight instead of lying and saying, oh, I'm gonna lose this 40 pounds or whatever, and get the 2 sizes too small, because you're still gonna hate it. So put the correct spring rates in for your weight. And I don't think every bike needs valving, but maybe it does. Personal preference. I get my stuff done, so it's whatever suits you. And then the other thing, that I recommend is checking your sag. Motul makes this really awesome, easy to use sag tool. I'm gonna do a wrench tip on how to use it, but there it is. It's digital, so it takes all the math and the guesswork out. And we sell it too if you want to purchase online. And then the other thing that we do to all of our race bikes is get rid of the stock brake fluid or whatever brake fluid's in it and use the liquid gold, Castrol. It's like impossible to boil this stuff, so that's why we use it. And we just start out fresh on new bikes, that way we're not losing our brakes first race. And then I personally run bib mooses, never have a flat, and I like the feel of a bib moose versus a tube. The bib mooses have more of a dead feel versus tubes. Tubes are bouncy to me, so I just don't like them. And then I always put a set of Dunlops on. And that's all I got really on the race bike setup. I'll go over in another video the guards and all the other stuff that I put on, but that's